George Floyd happened right before you came over here, right?
Oh, I
Or
was.
you were here when
Yeah,
George
yeah,
Floyd
yeah,
took
yeah.
place. Talk to me about that moment.
Rage, a lot of rage, a lot of not understanding why that happened that way, and then all the marches that happened afterwards, all the movements that rose after the death of George Floyd. Well, that sparked up something in me because I was like, I need to help that
So at
community.
that community, that was my question. Did you connect with the black community or that at that point?
Yes, yes.
Had you before then?
In a way, yes, but I never experienced it that way because that was first-handed. That was like marches right outside my house. So I connected that way a good bit. Because back home we learned about slavery.
And what's the
There's
story of slavery back home?
people, the outsiders, they came in our lands and bribed us and took our strongest men
Wow.
on the boat
Wow.
for the triangle trade.
Trade.
That's how they call it. And it's seen as a painful, but at the same time as like a historical moment. Because that's when our country got independence and we were able to be a little more modern.
Did the modernization happen because of what was made from the slave trade?
Yes.
Okay. So have you seen Woman King?
No, I
Okay, so it's
haven't.
Viola Davis, and that's what it's about. Okay, so they talk about how the country became strong as a result of the slave trade. Like a lot of their resources and wealth was built on, and a lot of times over here, we don't want to really face that reality because it's painful. Like, we think, okay, a couple of bribes happened, but there were major deals that were
Yeah. Yeah.
brokered as a result of that. So on my end, there's a lot of sorrow when I realized that. What comes to mind for you being on the other end of the shores when you think about the trade and the things that took place?
Uh, it's not pretty.
Right.
No, it's we have like that monument that's called the door of
Yeah, no return.
no return, and when you see that, it's a beautiful piece.
Have you been
But
to it?
yes, I've been
Okay.
to it many times. But like, it's a beautiful piece. But the story behind it is just for you to know what really happened,
Right.
and for you to have that in your mind that this is what happened to my past people.
So what drew me to your story and why I traveled from Atlanta to here to get the story was the fact that you went from one race, got on a plane and literally was another race when you came here.
Yeah.
Now you come over here and you experience George Floyd and you're seeing the things that happen once people are here. What's the connection like?
From back home, because it's made historically, we feel very sorry for it. But when I came here, it's completely different because how to say that back home it's like common knowledge, common sense to
Yeah.
know this story. But here, it's almost like it's not. It's almost like it's not. I've never felt that slavery was a story here, even though it was really strong here. It's like dusted away.
Here.
Yes,
Oh God.
yes,
Now that's deep because I thought you were going to say the opposite.
yeah.
I thought you were
It's.
going to say it's like really thick and it's obvious that it happened. You're saying there's almost like
I
it didn't
mean,
happen.
it's not this way I mean it, but it's like it's not really a scene as the same as back home.
So what do you think is the difference?
Think about it. After George Floyd, I felt that definitely the black community is is not doing great at all. But it doesn't seem like it.
And what makes it not seem like it?
I just never really seen it. You know what I mean? It's like I've seen all the violence, all the police brutality, but it's not really showed. I don't know how to say that. It's like people really here were able to make it one and not show it. But
So over here with the African American community, you see the police brutality, you see the violence, but what you don't see is what?
the change,
Ooh.
yeah,
You don't see the change within the black community or with outside of the community towards black people.
probably both. You know,
So do you feel like as African Americans here, we don't connect with slavery and recognize that it's happened?
it's like it happened in two places. You know, it's like it happened one in Africa and one here.
Right.
But they were both the same. You know, it's like we're seen as two different cultures.
Okay. So here, you don't feel like we connect ourselves to Africa.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Okay.
something like this.
Okay.
It's,
So it's almost like that happened then, and then we appeared, and it's two different worlds.
yes.
And over there, do you
Yes.
all see yourselves connected to us?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So now know that over here, we don't know that there's a connection, that you guys
Mhm.
connected to us.
Yeah. Exactly. I understand.
Yeah. I think that's a very deep thing that you just said, because
Mhm.
there's all these things that have happened, right?
Yes.
There's this idea that we were born on the waters. Okay, like the
Yeah.
1619 Project talks about being born on the waters. And that's the idea that this community came about
Mhm.
in the trade. But a lot of historians will say to you, no, we weren't born on the waters. I was a history major. We were born long before that. We were connected to a country. We weren't
Yeah.
born on the waters. And so
Yeah.
I kind of hear you speaking to that this did not start once we got here. There's a connection that you were taught happened,
Mhm.
but you get here and you don't find that there's a connection.
Because it's so surprising that nobody really knows where West Africa is,
Uh-huh.
even though that's like where the biggest port of slavery
Correct.
happened.
And did that shock you when you
Yes,
got?
yeah.
So understand, my background is I grew up wanting to know about West Africa.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is I had a mother who would not let me not know. So I went to school specifically for West African history for that reason.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to know the bulk of African Americans came out of Nigeria, Togo, Ivory Coast, all of those places, Senegal. What was life like prior to?
Yeah.
So I had a thirst for that. But I do understand what you're saying. And even when most people study African history, a lot of people will go to East Africa, Egypt, and Kemet, and all of those places. But West Africa was where the bulk happened.